The warning came at 3 in the morning Earth time. Dr. Kenji Tanaka was sleeping in his small apartment near the global space research center when his communication device started screaming. He grabbed it and saw the message that would change everything. The star Vega 7 was dying, and it was going to explode in less than 48 hours. Kenji ran to the research center without stopping to eat. When he arrived, the building was full of scared scientists from 12 different alien species. The Galactic Alliance had sent representatives from every major civilization, and they all looked terrified. Vega 7 was not just any star. 3 planets orbited it, and those planets were home to 9 billion living beings. The lead ambassador, a tall being from the Kelthorian race with blue skin and 4 arms, stood at the front of the room. His name was Vorth, and he spoke with a deep voice that echoed off the walls. "We have calculated the explosion," he said slowly. "When Vega 7 becomes a supernova, the radiation will destroy all 3 planets. Every man, woman, and child on those worlds will die. We have no ships fast enough to evacuate them all." The room became very quiet. Kenji looked around at the faces of the alien scientists. The Zethani were crying purple tears. The Morvacs were shaking their large heads. Even the emotionless crystalline beings seemed to flicker with sadness. Everyone believed this was the end for those 9 billion people. "There must be something we can do," said a young Kelthorian scientist. "We cannot just watch them die." Vorth shook his head. "Our greatest minds have studied this for centuries. When a star reaches this stage, there is nothing that can stop it. The physics are absolute. The core collapses, and the explosion follows. This is the law of the universe." Kenji raised his hand. The aliens all turned to look at him. Humans had only joined the Galactic Alliance 5 years ago, and many of the older species still thought of Earth as a primitive world. Kenji was used to being ignored in these meetings. "What if we do not stop the collapse?" Kenji asked. "What if we control it instead?" Vorth blinked all 6 of his eyes. "I do not understand your question, human." Kenji walked to the main display screen. His hands were shaking, but his mind was clear. He had spent 15 years studying stellar physics, and he had always wondered about this exact problem. "A supernova happens because the core collapse is uneven," he explained. "The star falls in on itself, but different parts fall at different speeds. This creates the explosion. But what if we made the collapse perfectly even?" A Zethani scientist laughed. "That is impossible. You would need to apply pressure to every part of the star at exactly the same moment. The precision required is beyond any technology in the galaxy. Not if we use gravity waves," Kenji said. He pulled up his research files on the screen. "Humans have been studying gravity waves for 200 years. We know how to create them, shape them, and direct them. If we position gravity wave generators around the star in the right pattern, we can apply equal pressure to every point on the surface at the same time." The room erupted in noise. Aliens were talking over each other in a dozen different languages. Some were angry. Some were confused. But Kenji noticed that a few of them were looking at his calculations with interest. An old Morvac scientist pushed through the crowd. His name was Grelth, and he was famous for discovering 3 new elements. "Young human," he said, "your theory is interesting, but you would need over 1,000 gravity wave generators. We do not have that many in the entire Galactic Alliance." "Earth does," Kenji replied. "We have been building them for decades. They are part of our space defense network. We have exactly 1,247 of them." Everyone stared at him. The Kelthorians whispered to each other. The crystalline beings flashed bright colors of surprise. Even Vorth seemed shocked. "Why would humans build so many gravity wave generators?" Vorth asked. Kenji smiled. "Because we are humans. We prepare for problems that have not happened yet. We build things just in case we might need them someday. Other species call it paranoid. We call it being ready." Vorth studied Kenji's calculations for a long time. Then he looked at the human with new respect in his eyes. Your math is correct, he admitted. This could actually work, but we only have 48 hours. Can you get your generators to Vega 7 in time? We can try, Kenji said. He was already sending messages to Earth. My government will need to approve this. We will be giving up our entire defense network to save a planet that is not ours. The decision came back in less than 1 hour. The president of Earth, a calm woman named Maria Santos, appeared on the screen. Dr. Tanaka, she said, you have permission to use whatever you need. 9 billion lives are worth more than any defense system. Go save those people. The next 12 hours were chaos. Human ships launched from every corner of the solar system, each one carrying dozens of gravity wave generators. The Galactic Alliance provided faster-than-light transport to move the generators across the galaxy. Kenji did not sleep. He stood at the command center, directing the placement of each device with incredible precision. The aliens watched in amazement as the humans worked. They had never seen any species move so fast or work so hard. Human engineers fixed problems in minutes that would have taken other species days. Human pilots flew impossible paths through radiation storms. Human scientists made calculations faster than supercomputers. How do they do this? A young Zithani asked Growth. They are supposed to be a primitive species. Growth watched the humans running from station to station, their eyes focused and their movements quick. They are not primitive, he said quietly. They are just different. Most species evolve slowly over millions of years. We develop technology carefully and safely, but humans evolved on a dangerous world full of disasters. They learn to think fast, act fast, and never give up. When there is a crisis, they become something incredible. With only 6 hours left before Vega 7 would explode, the last gravity wave generator was placed in position. Kenji looked at the holographic display showing all 1,247 devices floating around the dying star. They formed a perfect sphere, like tiny dots of hope against a massive ball of fire. Dr. Tanaka, Vorth said, everyone is ready. The entire Galactic Alliance is watching. Are you certain this will work? Kenji took a deep breath. He thought about the 9 billion people on those 3 planets. He thought about the children who were probably scared, the parents who were holding them close, the old people who had seen so much and did not want to see their world end. He thought about his own daughter back on Earth, only 7 years old, sleeping safely in her bed. I am not certain, he said honestly, but I believe it will work. And believing is sometimes enough. He pressed the activation button. The gravity wave generators all turned on at exactly the same moment. Invisible waves of compressed space-time flowed toward Vega 7 from every direction. The star seemed to freeze for a second, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Then something beautiful happened. Instead of exploding outward in a burst of deadly radiation, the star began to collapse inward evenly. The gravity waves were working. They were pushing on every part of the star at the same time, forcing the collapse to happen smoothly and gently. Kenji watched the data streaming across his screens. The core was compressing, but it was compressing correctly. The energy that would have become a supernova was being directed inward instead of outward. The star was shrinking, becoming smaller and denser with each passing minute. It is working, Growth whispered. By all the stars in the sky, it is actually working. 3 hours later, Vega 7 had transformed. It was no longer a huge red giant ready to explode. It had become a white dwarf, a small and stable star that would burn quietly for billions of years. The 3 planets were safe. The 9 billion people would live. The command center erupted in celebration. Aliens from every species were hugging each other, crying tears of joy, and shouting in languages that Kenji did not understand. The Kelthorians were dancing with their forearms waving. The Zithani were singing a beautiful song of thanks. Even the crystalline beings were glowing with warm, happy colors. Vorth approached Kenji and bowed deeply. In Kelthorian culture, This was the highest sign of respect. "Dr. Tanaka," he said, his voice full of emotion, "you have done the impossible. You have controlled the death of a star. No species in the history of the galaxy has ever achieved such a thing. You have saved 9 billion lives." Kenji bowed back. He was tired, more tired than he had ever been in his life. But he was also happy. "I did not do it alone," he said. "Every human ship and every human engineer helped. The Galactic Alliance provided transport and support. This was not just a human victory. It was a victory for everyone." But Vorath shook his head. "No, Dr. Tanaka, you do not understand what you have done. Other species would have spent years debating whether to try. We would have formed committees and written reports. We would have calculated the risks over and over until it was too late. But humans? You saw a problem, you found a solution, and you made it happen in 48 hours. That is something unique. That is something special about your kind." In the months that followed, Kenji became famous across the galaxy. He received medals from every species. He was invited to speak at universities on 100 different worlds. Scientists wrote papers about his technique, which they called the Tanaka method. Some even said he should receive the Galactic Prize for Science, the highest honor in the Alliance. But the thing that meant the most to Kenji happened 3 months after the event. A small ship arrived at Earth, carrying a delegation from the 3 planets he had saved. There were children, parents, and elders from each world. They had traveled across the galaxy just to thank him. A little girl from the planet Varus, with silver skin and bright green eyes, walked up to Kenji and handed him a flower. It was a simple flower, purple and yellow, grown in the soil of her home world. "Thank you for saving us," she said in broken English. "My mother taught me your language so I could say this to you. Because of you, I get to grow up. Because of you, I get to see tomorrow." Kenji took the flower and felt tears running down his face. He knelt down to look at the little girl. "What is your name?" he asked. "Kira," she said. "Kira," Kenji repeated. "That is a beautiful name. Do you know what it means in my language? It means light. And that is what you are, Kira. You are the light that makes everything worth doing." The little girl smiled and hugged him. And in that moment, Kenji understood why humans would always keep pushing forward, keep trying to solve impossible problems, keep reaching for the stars. It was not for glory or fame. It was for moments like this. It was for the chance to give one little girl her tomorrow. Years later, when historians wrote about this event, they called it the igniting of stellar fire. They said it was the day that humanity proved its place among the stars. They said it showed that the youngest species in the Galactic Alliance was also the most determined, the most creative, and the most willing to risk everything to save lives. But Kenji always remembered it differently. He remembered it as the day he met Kira, the little girl with the silver skin and the purple flower. He remembered it as the day he learned that innovation was not just about science. It was about love. It was about hope. It was about the simple belief that tomorrow could be better than today, if only someone was brave enough to make it so. And humans, for all their flaws and fears, were always brave enough to try.